Hello, and welcome to the Consider Your Mind podcast. I'm your host, Eric King, and along with my co host, Mino Phachanh, we're here to talk about all things mental health. Let's get into it. Hello, everybody. No, unfortunately, it's not Mino, your usual first voice you hear on the Consider Your Mind podcast. I'm flying solo again. It's your host, Eric King, for another session of the Consider Your Mind podcast, episode 35. Please keep, again, my co-host and friend, Mino Phachanh, in your prayers. Again, he's been rocking with me rocking with each other for 32 episodes straight. I'm really wishing him a speedy recovery. He's going through some kidney failure and issues. He's been very vulnerable himself on the podcast. If you go back to certain episodes about what he's been going through physically. And so we just lift him up, keep him in your prayers, positive vibes all towards him, that he'll be back in the saddle as soon as he can. So I'm here once again, episode 35, Consider Your Mind podcast. And to be honest with you all, this is going to probably be my toughest episode to do, because this was the first time I got on here, and I really didn't want to do it. Didn't want to do it necessarily without my friend. Didn't want to do it with the things that I have going on personally in my life, the stuff that's going on. And as I mentioned earlier, it was Mino who's been kind of the leader in the vulnerability train, which I believe is the power of this podcast. One of the early, I guess, kind of mantras or quotes or whatever it is, directives that really prompted me to go down the path of vulnerability, to share what I was going through as far as mental health, as far as reaching out to go to get therapy. One of the catalysts for that was a quote by a man named Richard Rohr, who also, I read some of his books, his audiobooks as well. Quoted him, briefly in one of the Black Men in Therapy, clips. Please go check out our TikTok, Instagram. I did a clip with it while I'm in my car right after therapy. And the quote goes like this: vulnerability transforms you. You cannot be in the presence of a truly vulnerable, honestly vulnerable person and not be affected. I think that's the way we were meant to be, in the presence of one another. So that's something I carry with me, that, vulnerability transforms you. And so I believe by us being transparent about what we're going through personally, mental health wise, and sharing what we're doing to better those things, I believe has a transformative effect on the audience, and it's already paid dividends. And I do so appreciate you all who reach out to us in the DMs and encourage us in the comments and the likes and all that stuff. And please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done so, whatever platform you're listening to this on. I say this is difficult because I never planned on doing this without my boy. Mino, literally, he was the one that thought of the podcast. My idea for Consider Your Mind, it was just a cool.com that I had bought. I was thinking, all right, after I do my therapy sessions, I'll just go ahead and make a little quick video, perhaps about what we talked about, and just, let people know, hey, I'm in therapy and it's cool, and, you should, check it out too. And the response I got from it was so positive, and Mino was one of the main ones to really reach out to me and say, hey, man, this could be more than that. And, I shot him over the name Consider Your Mind, and he shot me back with the logo. I mean, the legend, and 35 episodes later, we're here. I knew during that process that, he was going through some things. He was going through some things physically. It'd been several years. Again, far before the podcast, I've been knowing this man over 10 years, about 10 years now. And saw him before his ailment, kind of, took away a little bit of his, freedom, because you got to do dialysis. You got to, again, kidney failure is no joke. For those of you who have any experience with it, know of anyone that needs a transplant or anything like that, it really does kind of hinder, what you can do in your spontaneity. And so, really, I was so, happy to be part of something to have an outlet, to kind of express that, to kind of relate to others. And, he was the one that really, put me on that train of thinking, the first person to tell me about anxiety, the first person to, really reach out and tell me, hey, man, I'm going through an anxiety attack. I'm going through this, that, and the third, help me out. And, it really strengthened me, from when I was going through some things, when the pandemic was hitting, when I wasn't certain about, a job, wasn't certain where I was going to be living, wasn't certain about, the future, and started having anxiety. I knew I wasn't alone in that feeling because of, Mino in particular. And So I just wanted to start it off, the podcast like that, man, to tell you, I'm not sure what this is going to be exactly going forward, because at the end of the day, we stress it all the time on our podcast, man. This is about your health. This is about living the best quality life of you as you can. And as much as I know it, man, the man would he would do the podcast from the hospital bed. He would he'd do the editing, all that stuff from the hospital bed. If you would let him. But right now, he needs to just worry about resting up, and we can hold this down in the meantime, in between time. And so I just want to again thank you all for the support, your well wishes, and all that. But one of the things that I recently talked about with my therapist was, what happens if people know? He kept saying that, this fear that you have. And I don't know about, any of y'all, maybe it's just me, but I found myself regretting a lot of decisions that I've made out of fear, worrying about, as therapist Jerry, he said, creating those dragons in our minds, something being so fearful, something, has claws and teeth and fangs, and, it's insurmountable, can, fly, this thing that we create in our mind, that actually isn't, isn't worth all that, time and effort to really be building it up like that. At the end of last podcast, episode 34, I left you all with what we had been working on, which is reaction versus response. So again, responding to the things versus just reacting to them. And I got to tell you, man, particularly this past week has been such a trying test of that. Be careful what you put out there. I don't, I'm a Christian, but I know some of you all believe in different things. But boy, the universe, God, whoever, man, you put that stuff out there, you better be able to, better be prepared to be confronted with it, karma, even whatever you want to call it. But for those that don't know, my personal circle, I think I put an inordinate amount of emphasis on being employed, being successful, having a job, doing these things. And in the past, when I was younger, when I would, lose my job, when I was messing up or whatever, I would just almost shut down when it would happen to me. Even if there was much less on the line, it was just me, taking care of myself, single guy. But I would feel like such a failure, to be unemployed, to not have a job at that moment felt so, debilitating to me for whatever reason. Even though I'm blessed enough, I've been very gainfully employed. There's been very brief periods of time where I haven't had a job. But when I would go through that, it would lead to me to such self-doubt, such insecurity, and it would be very paralyzing to me. My best friend and my cousin, when I was rooming with them back in the day, I think I was about 26 years old. I was just finishing up grad school, and I got let go from my job at the bank. And I think I've talked about this on another podcast. Again, it was a regular teller job, man. This was nothing to write home about. It was nothing, some massive career thing that I was doing, but, it was my job. And I remember they ended up letting me go, being tardy or something like that, procrastination issues, got props. And they end up letting me go, but it just hit me, so off guard. And I remember that Friday, because Friday is a very busy day at the bank. I'm used to, doing stuff. Talked about it last podcast, just used to doing some activity, reacting. And all of a sudden I had nothing to do, and I felt so depressed, and I was just in my room, didn't leave my room. And, my cousin had to come check on me, man. Didn't leave the bath, didn't get up to go to the bathroom, I didn't watch any TV. I was just sitting in my chair, man, just depressed. And it really took them to snap me out of it. We ended up taking a trip all the way up to Canada. Whole nother story. But a brief trip up there, to get me moving again. And so I reflect on moments like that, when I was, 26, so that's 8 years ago. And I really, I thank God. I thank the people that are around me that are supportive, like my best friends, my cousins, and now, my therapist, to really encourage me through these times of uncertainty, particularly employment wise. Now there's more, there's more at stake of it. Since I've started this podcast, I've become a father, started making, much more money, right around the time he was born, took an opportunity to remotely and all that stuff. And it was a blessing, but things, run out, and sometimes you don't see them coming. And I had a similar situation where this, last week I got told that my last day at my job was going to be, next week. So just basically like a 2-week notice, like, hey, it's not even about your performance. They're doing some restructuring, some things are, this, that, and the third. And, this is the end of the contract. And it hit me so off guard, and I was very hurt. I was like, I kind of got in that mode again, that feeling, just like, damn, you know, what did I do? Like, dang, is this just what I was meant to happen? I can't stay anywhere. Like all these self doubts, things that had really nothing to do with me. As they even said, it wasn't performance based, but it was their, prerogative, and it was up to me to again not just react, to just panic, to just da da da. Matter of fact, cancel my therapy session that's coming up. Can't afford that now. Panic. You know, um, I'm proud to say I didn't react. I responded, in a more positive way, this go around. So, had a couple interviews and everything, submitted some job applications. Luckily, even at the place I was working at before, I kept good connections so that I can apply there, again. And it is a blessing, but it's one of those things where, and again, in the midst of, my friend, dealing with some serious, health issues, my friend and partner, that I run this very positive mental health space with. My son that, needs diapers, daycare, all of this stuff, these new responsibilities. Also, hey, your job just said, hey, you're not going to be here too much longer out of nowhere. Just dealing with that when I just really wasn't expecting it. It's been a lot. It really has. And so, again, what happens if people know your boy is on the edge of having to find some new unemployment, new employment? But I look at it to the response that I got when I told everybody that I was going to have a son. That I all of a sudden out of the clear blue sky in April, I've been doing this podcast for 4 months. Middle of April, I dropped this picture on my Instagram and everything else of me and my son, and I was so fearful with that. Oh, what if people knew I had a son I wasn't planning on having? What if people knew it was in a relationship that's not even, we're not even together anymore? Now we're having to come back and, make something, co-parent work. What if people knew? I feel like I waited all this time, to go out in a way that I felt so, like irresponsible. You know, what if my parents, what are my parents going to think? What's my family going to think? And the response was nothing like I thought it would, that I'd built it up in my head. It was nothing but support. There's nothing but, love. And my son has been nothing but a joy. To be a father has been such a blessing. All the things that I was worried about, I'm not going to say all the things. Okay, there's always things to worry about. But in terms of that big dragon, that big dragon in my mind that I'm building up it as, that I can't defeat, that I'm no match for. No, I'm well. And I do appreciate the loved ones and the people around me that care about me and have supported me. So I encourage you all that as I continue to get a little bit more vulnerable, because there's a whole nother thing, man. In addition to all that, a couple weeks ago, I got to, again, I'm not alone in this, because a lot of people are coming up to the end of their leases, are dealing with their landlords' apartments, and people acting crazy out here. I know I'm not the only one this past month that got a notice about your rent going up ridiculous amounts of money. So in order, our lease is up at the end of October. Renew my lease, is going to be a $200 increase in rent, like $210 total, but $200 increase in rent out of nowhere, out of the clear blue sky. I haven't seen any renovations, and don't get me wrong, I don't live in a terrible neighborhood. It's not a dump or anything, but it's nothing special, and that's right by the airport where I have to be pausing the podcast because all these airplanes and warships be coming through. No, so it's just one thing after another piling. It's like, wow, and in the midst of that, trying to keep, this thing that we have that's very positive going, dropping every week, man. So I thank you all for bearing with us and continuing to support us. And, as I continue to do my best to keep this vulnerability train going that Mino started, I thank you all for, being understanding of that. One thing also that speaking of Richard Rohr, somebody that my therapist kind of put me up on, he has, a blog that he does, and, meditations and things to, think on. And I definitely need to be better about my meditations. And one of the things that we spoke on in our therapy session this week was, love and suffering, being, just part of being human. those two things are something that are universal that we all experience, as humans. I think one of the quotes that says, love and suffering are part of most human lives. Without any doubt, they are the primary spiritual teachers more than any Bible, church, ministry, sacrament, or theologian. You know, love and suffering, though, a podcast called Rolling with the Punches. I swear, ever since we did that podcast, the punches have kept rolling. Be careful what you ask for, man. But something else he continues, again, it's like, different. I'll put a little link to it, down in the description box. But he has kind of like a week's worth of meditations. So that was the Sunday one. And the Monday one is very interesting. It says, suffering can lead us in either two directions. It can make us very bitter and cause us to shut down, or it can make us wise, compassionate, and utterly open, either because our hearts have been softened or perhaps because we feel as though we have nothing more to lose. We have all seen both of those manifest themselves. When people are going through suffering, when they're going through it, it can make them a very bitter, angry person. Oh, why me type of person, lashing out on those, even those who are trying to help them. But on the other side, we've seen, people are going through something and that's suffering, and it makes them very wise and compassionate people. And so we always hope to be the latter. We hope to, be the ones when we're going through something, not if, but when we're going through something, that we become, compassionate, better for it, more open, soft, able to, use our suffering, it go beyond ourselves and not be done in vain. And we all hope to be that. It's something I know that my boy Mino strives for, to not be bitter, to not be angry, to really be, more introspective and, and use the time, utilize the time. And I thank him for letting me be a part of that. And what you're listening to is a product of him not just being bitter and shutting down, but being more open and reaching out. So, thank you. Shout out to my therapist for continuing to keep me thinking, point me in some directions of some people that are really thinking about things in a very contemplative way. Because the easiest thing for myself to do is to check out, is to numb out. I really don't want to think about it, that deep. I think the friends around me, particularly my semi co-host Steve, especially on the Let's Talk About It podcast, Let's Talk About It, CYM, y'all look that up as well. That's our other podcast. It's a little raw, the brainchild of Mino. He wanted to express a little bit more personality. We don't use the King's English on that one, but we're able to, talk a little bit more freely. And this last week, again, after this, podcast comes out Sunday, the Let's Talk About It comes out Monday. We had one of his buddies on, and they were both talking about, talking about fatherhood, all that good stuff. And one of the things that kind of came out of the conversation even afterwards was, hey man, this is helping me out with staying on the right track as far as sobriety goes, keeping your mental health right, not reaching out to just numb yourself or a substance or, giving into that addiction. The simple act of talking with one another, being vulnerable and saying, hey man, I'm going through it as well. There's power in that. Again, the theme, vulnerability transforms you. You cannot be in the presence of a truly vulnerable, honestly vulnerable person and not be affected. That's the power, of platforms like this. So again, I said I didn't know how long this one was going to go. This is the first podcast I really haven't actually really wanted to do. Expected to have my partner, and I hope he's going to be back soon. But we do have some great guests coming up. We're going to talk about specifically something for the ladies, postpartum, depression and anxiety, something I personally couldn't cover, on my own or even with me, that well. It's something I could never, experience. But it's something as a new father that I was told to look out for and just be sensitive to. Even if you don't understand it, hey, chalk it up to that and, just be sensitive to it. So I'm so glad we'll be able to go beyond that rudimentary explanation of it, to me very soon, as well as other returning guests like hypnotherapist Rupert Missick, always coming with such great wisdom, our buddy from the Down Under, man. So hopefully we can maybe talk about that epigenetic stuff, but I don't even know if y'all are ready for that. That's that, deeper science thing. Please let me know again what you all think, what you all want this show to be, because as you see, it's evolving. And that's another thing too, in the midst of this, when we finally feel like you got a handle on something, it's this theme, and it really tested me this week. Finally thought I had a handle on my job, this fully remote job that I don't see anybody, I can't really go off those social and verbal cues to figure out where I'm standing to get my security. So, foundation just a little bit ago, dang, it ends up really meaning not that much. Taken away, got to change. Boom, make an adjustment. I thought we really finally got in the rhythm. We had hit the halfway mark. Then we had a mid-year recap. You know, we had done half the year, 26 episodes straight. And I promise you, ever since then, it seems like we've had to make so many adjustments and so many things on the fly. And the show itself, I'm excited to see how it's going to evolve, but it is a very scary thing, man. You know, I'm not one prone to anxiety, but I tell you, there's some things in life that are, definitely testing your boy. I wish he was here because I have like the mental health breaks, the mental health questions at the end of the day. You know, those really help me to think a lot, man. And so I don't have a mental health question of the day, and it's about to rain over here in St. Louis, so you know them storms in the Midwest don't play, especially down here. So it's probably gonna cut us off, and so I'm gonna take that as a sign, man, and sign off. And no, we'll be back next week for sure. But as I said, man, please keep my boy Mino in your prayers as he continues to heal up and get his strength back, so we can get back on these airways with your boy, but more importantly, live the best and most fulfilling life that he can. And that's what we wish for you all today and going forward. Somebody really cool once said, I hope you live as long as you want and never want as long as you live. And so that's my hope, for everybody out there. This is an optimistic show. So thank you all for, I guess, listening to me be vulnerable, vent a little bit, talk about some things that are going on personally in my life that I'm nervous about. And I really hope that that gives you the freedom to talk with some of your loved ones and some people that you feel close enough to be vulnerable with, and get that stuff out, man. So until next week, peace.